There's a plane flying routes across Dubai, Singapore and London that can carry upwards of 600 people, has a bar on the upper deck, and even had a shower suite in first class. By almost every engineering measure, it is a masterpiece. Yet not a single major American airline has ever flown one. Not Delta, not United, not American Airlines. 0 orders, 0 interest, but 0 regret too. So what did American Airlines know that Airbus didn't? And why does the answer tell you something profound about how the entire aviation industry works? Buckle up. This goes deeper than you think. To understand the rejection, you have to understand the bet. In the late 1990s, Airbus looked at the world and saw a problem. Airports were running out of slots. Heathrow, Narita, LAX. The runways were full. The skies above major hubs were getting dangerously crowded. Their solution was elegant in its simplicity. If you can't add more flights, make each flight carry more people. The A380 was born from that logic. A double-decker wide-body capable of hauling between 525 and 850 passengers depending on configuration. It could land at congested hubs, offload a small city's worth of passengers, and relieve pressure on the entire system. On paper, it was brilliant. Airbus was so confident they projected 1,200 sales over 20 years. They needed roughly 420 aircraft sold just to break even. Final count? Just 251. Here's where the story gets interesting, because someone did believe, spectacularly. In 2001, before the A380 had even flown a single test flight, Emirates placed an order for 58 aircraft with options for 90 more. At the time, it was the largest aircraft order in aviation history. Emirates eventually ended up owning 123 A380s, nearly half of all aircraft ever built. But why would they bet the house on an unproven aircraft? The answer is geography. Dubai sits in one of the most strategically perfect locations on the planet. Within an 8-hour flight radius lives roughly 2/3 of the world's entire population. Emirates built their entire network around one single concept: bring passengers from everywhere to Dubai, then shoot them everywhere else. The A380 was tailor-made for exactly this: massive capacity for those high-density hub routes, premium cabins that justified charging top dollar, range that could reach virtually any major city from Dubai non-stop. Emirates didn't just buy the A380, they became the A380. But here's the critical thing that Airbus missed. They built the plane around Emirates' geography, not America's. Stop and think about the sheer scale of American aviation for a moment. American Airlines runs roughly 6,800 flights every single day. That's one departure every 13 seconds, around the clock. Delta operates about 5,400 daily. United another 4,500. Combined, these 3 carriers are moving over 16,000 flights globally every single day. Emirates, the airline that staked its entire identity on the A380, operates only about 500 flights per day total. The big 3 US carriers move more than 30 times the daily flights of Emirates. Now here's the question that should be keeping Airbus engineers up at night. If US airlines are that large, that powerful, and that profitable, why did they all choose to pass? The answer has nothing to do with the quality of the aircraft. It has everything to do with a fundamentally different philosophy of what air travel is supposed to be. Here's a mental model that explains everything. Picture Kansas City, solid mid-American city, about 2 million in the metro area, good airport. Not tiny, not massive, just very, very American. Now ask yourself, can you fill an A380 from Kansas City to London? You can't. On your best day, you might scrape together 100 passengers. An A380 in typical configuration holds 525 seats. To fill that plane, you'd need to funnel passengers from Kansas City, St. Louis, Indianapolis, and Nashville, all connecting through Chicago or New York first. That's exactly how the old hub and spoke model worked. And American Airlines spent decades moving away from it. Here's what they figured out. Those same 100 people from Kansas City would rather pay more for a direct flight than deal with a connection. Even on a smaller plane, even if it takes longer, even if it's less comfortable. So American Airlines started flying Boeing 787s direct from Kansas City and Nashville to London, Austin to Amsterdam, secondary cities directly to international destinations on aircraft carrying 250 to 300 people. The A380 couldn't do this. By definition, it needed massive passenger volumes just to justify taking off. That forced you into the hub and spoke game, which is exactly the game America had moved on from. Now here's the part of this story that almost nobody talks about. Even if American Airlines had wanted to use the A380 on high-volume routes, a quiet revolution in engine technology was already making the argument obsolete. Back in 1985, any flight crossing an ocean legally required 4 engines. The logic was simple: lose one engine, you still have 3. The rules forced twin-engine planes to stay within 60 minutes flight time of a diversion airport. But modern jet engines have progressively become extraordinarily reliable. So regulators updated the rules. By 2011, something called ETOPS 330 had been approved, meaning a twin-engine aircraft could fly up to 330 minutes from the nearest airport. That's 5.5 hours, over the open ocean. Not even the 4-engine 747 was approved for this at that time. Once it received this new approval in 2014, a 787 with just 2 engines could fly routes that previously required 4 engine giants like the 747 or the A380. This didn't just level the playing field, it destroyed the A380's entire economic argument. A 787 burns dramatically less fuel, carries 250 to 300 seats instead of 525, and can be deployed profitably on routes the A380 could never touch. Airbus, to their credit, knew this was coming. They had the A330 and A350 in their own lineup, both twin-engine, both long-range. Which raises the haunting question: why did they still spend $25 billion on the A380? The answer is Emirates. The answer was always Emirates. But even the technology story is downstream of something deeper, something that happened in 1978. That year, the US deregulated its airline industry. Before that, the government controlled routes and fares. Airlines competed on service and food quality. Prices were high, but predictable. After deregulation, everything changed. Any airline could fly any route at any price. Competition became brutal, and over time, American passengers became something different to almost everywhere else, obsessively price-sensitive. European and Middle Eastern carriers can charge premium prices because many of their routes have limited competition. Emirates can fill an A380 with passengers paying $2,000 for economy because there might be just 1 or 2 other airlines on that route. A US domestic linked route? New York to Los Angeles has 8 airlines competing. If American tries to charge a premium for A380 luxury, JetBlue will immediately undercut them with an A320. The A380 was designed for a world of regulated airlines and captive passengers. American deregulation killed that world 30 years before the plane ever flew. Here's a practical layer that gets glossed over in most analyses. The A380 has a wingspan of 261 feet, almost 80 meters. Its double-deck boarding requires specialized dual-level jet bridges. You can't just park one at any gate at any airport. JFK has 4 A380 compatible gates. LAX has 6. Chicago O'Hare has 2. Compare that to a Boeing 737, which can use virtually any gate at any commercial airport in the country. But the real killer isn't the gates, it's the turnaround maths. A narrow body like a 737 can land, deplane, clean, fuel, and reboard in about 45 minutes. An A380 needs a minimum of 2 hours for the same process. During peak travel hours at a major hub, that one A380 gate slot could have handled 4 737 departures, potentially moving more total passengers with far more schedule flexibility. American airports are built around rapid cycles and high frequency. The A380 needed exactly the opposite: long dwell times and patient, captive passengers. In 2004, executives from American, Delta and United flew to Toulouse, France. Airbus rolled out the full red carpet, mock-ups, presentations, launch discounts, favourable financing terms. The Americans asked the right question: How many gates need rebuilding? What's the realistic load factor? How do you fill up to 800 seats consistently in a deregulated market with price-sensitive passengers and 8 competitors per route? Then all 3 airlines walked away and immediately placed orders for completely different planes. American ordered 42 Boeing 787s. Delta bought 25 Airbus A350s. United went with 35 Boeing 787s. They didn't reject the A380 because it was a bad aircraft. They rejected it because they understood something Airbus hadn't fully internalized: the US aviation market rewards being everywhere over being enormous. Boeing made the same read. Instead of building a bigger 747, they built the 787 Dreamliner, specifically designed for point-to-point routes, explicitly targeting secondary cities, directly betting on the American preference for direct flights. Boeing has already sold over 1,500 Dreamliners. Airbus sold 251 A380s total. By 2018, Airbus was producing around 12 A380s per year. They needed at least 30 annual deliveries just to keep the line viable. In early 2019, they announced the end of production. The program that was supposed to challenge Boeing's dominance had instead proved that engineering brilliance alone cannot overcome strategic misalignment. If just one major US carrier had ordered 50 A380s, which would represent only about 5% of American Airlines' total fleet, the economics might have worked. The program might have survived. They chose not to. Every single one of them. And here's the uncomfortable truth for aviation romantics. They were right. The A380 succeeded in exactly the places where its core assumptions held. Dubai, Singapore, Qatar, London Heathrow. Small geographic footprints, single mega hubs, captive passenger pools. High-density routes where filling 525 seats is genuinely achievable. In America, where 50 cities each have over 1 million people scattered across a continent, where passengers have been trained by 40 years of deregulation to hunt for the cheapest direct flight, where airports are optimized for rapid turnover rather than grand arrivals, the assumptions never held. The Airbus A380 is arguably the most beautiful failure in the history of commercial aviation. A genuine engineering marvel, loved by passengers and pilots alike, and now mourned by enthusiasts worldwide. But aviation isn't just engineering. It's economics, geography, infrastructure, regulation, and timing, all colliding at once. US airlines looked at the A380 and didn't see the future of air travel. They saw a plane built for someone else's future. And in the end, they were 251 aircraft worth of correct. If you enjoyed this video, then I think you might love to check out this one next.